Hello to you today. Today I'm going to plant my tomato seeds, my eggplant seeds, and some basil seeds, all at the beginning of May. Is this a bad idea? You'll have to stay tuned for more videos to find out. Today I'm going to show you how I plant my garden seeds. Set the camera up for us here so that you can see my seedling tree here. I've got my seeds along the bottom here. And I've got flattened cardboard box on my desk here to make sure we have some room for everything. I got some things handy with me today. I've got some paper towels. I have some tape here that we can use for retaping up the packages. My little dibbler of choice for digging holes is a toothpick. So I've got a few of those here. And I've also got a nice handy pair of scissors. And we may be pushing our luck this year because I'm planting tomatoes on the 2nd of May. Now, we have a very long growing season. I don't see this as being a huge big deal. We're just going to be a little late on our tomatoes this year. But the nice part about it is I am not going to have to up pot. I normally have to up pot my seeds when they get going every year. These tomato seeds that I've got going this year, we're actually going to plant almost 2-inch gross sites. I'm using a 50 site tray and a standard 1020 tray. So I can have 50 plants. What I like to do when we do these is we actually have plant tags that I put, but I don't put labelings on my plant tags. Each variety of tomato, I keep it on a notepad in the computer, but I color code mine. So you can see here, I've got a different color for each variety of tomato. And we'll continue down that theme here with a nice blue. Then when we switch over to eggplant, I know what my eggplant looks like and what tomato plants look like. So I start using the colors over again. And then our very last 2 rows, I'm going to plant with a whole bunch of basil, and I'm not going to use a plant tag. I know exactly what this tray is. I like to use, starting my seeds, a 50% peat moss, 50% perlite mix. It's a nice airy mix. At the end of this planting, you'll see that I will put a dome over the top to help keep the moisture in. I've already pre-moistened it. So all we really should have to be doing today is just planting seeds. Now, I'm going to plant an old classic here. This is just an heirloom cherry tomato we're going to start out with. No particular special name on it, no nothing. And I'm just going to cut off where we've taped it up before. These seeds are a couple of years old. And to account for that, I'm probably going to start 2 to 3 plants in each site. So let's take a look at our seeds here. And we can kind of give you somewhat of a view of the tomato seeds here that we got. So like I said, I like to come along, take my toothpick that I have here, and I just like to make a hole for the tomato seeds, about 1/2 inch deep or so, maybe a little deeper. And I just kind of go around in a circle, and it moves the dirt out of the way. And we can get our tomatoes going. Now, I'm using a coarse perlite in this particular mix. So sometimes it gets to be a pain. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and Drop a couple seeds into there. And grab another 2 seeds and drop them into there. Another couple seeds in that one. Another couple into there. And a couple into the last one. And then I just come along and then I just kind of tap down the soil and push it over to close the hole I created back up. And then it's all filled in. And then this would be the point that actually what I would do is I would place my tag in the end there. And that just marks that I'm done doing the seeds. Now I'll take my remainder seeds that I have. And we'll go ahead and get some tape. Put our seeds down here real quick. Get some tape about as wide as the package. Then we could just set it right down on top halfway. Pick up the package. Fold the top over. And if you're so inclined, you can come along and cut off the extra tape off the ends. And that trims up our seeds here. Now what I'll do with these is I'll take them and I'll hold on to the packages. I'll watch how many seeds come up. And based on how many seeds come up, I'll determine whether or not I want to even hold on to the package for the next year. You know, I'll replant seeds until I either run out in the packaging that I've bought or until none will sprout out. And I've had some packages I've planted and they just don't come up, and oh well, we had to go to the store to buy that variety that year because nothing decided to come up. So I will use the seeds until they no longer work. And then some seeds I run out of every year. I overstart. You know, as you're seeing here, I'm planting five of each variety, and then 2 seeds in each hole, 2 to 3 seeds. I'll go through after they've come up and I'll carefully remove one out of each one so that there's only one plant in each cell. But I only plan on planting maybe 1 or 2 out of the 5. So I'm either going to have to sell them or I'm going to have to up pot them in some other pots maybe and find another place for them. Or do an experiment. There's all sorts of things we can. This is a tomato here that we're growing again this year that we grew for the first time last year. And this one's called Baby Boomer, and it's a Baby Boomer hybrid. And we were very happy with its production. So we figured we'd give it another go here. I actually like to cover my holes over. As sometimes they don't go exactly where I want it, so I just kind of push them down in there and take care of the problem here. These accidentally got them kind of on the top. I'll push them down into the soil. Make sure they're not caught on my finger. And then cover them over. And this essentially is just a rinse and repeat operation here. I could put these out in a small little greenhouse that I have, but because of my delays in planting, I want to expedite the growth of these. That means I'll be keeping them indoors to get them started. They'll have a much better regulated temperature. And the biggest thing and the biggest change that I did last year is I keep the lights on for 23 out of the 24 hours a day. And I grow under intense LED grow lights. My seedlings that I started last year were ready to go out in the garden and or be up potted in less than 30 days. Needless to say, this kind of caused an issue. I had to up pot them and then put up a couple more grow lights to deal with the fact that I started them and they were ready to go April 1st, and the garden and the weather wasn't ready for them. So this year I just decided to procrastinate and delay it. And we've planted late before. We've decided before to start a garden at the end of June. And, we had nothing going, so we had to go to the store and buy plants. So essentially, this is kind of like going and buying plants in 2 months. So we won't get our 4th of July tomato. I'll still try, but I don't think we're going to get to a 4th of July tomato. But with these things growing underneath 23-hour light, they will grow very fast. Where they're going to be put, it's nice and warm. They'll germinate pretty quickly, and within 2 to 3 weeks, they'll be ready to be hardened off and go into where we're going to plant them. I don't subscribe to the growing your seedlings under dim lights unless you're trying to modulate their growth. If you're trying to time things, you can take your lights and you can turn them down a little bit or turn them off for a little bit longer amount of time, within reason. It's, instead of a lot of people do 16 or 18 hours, you can go down to 14 hours if your seedlings are getting ready too quick. And you can get them planted when it's time. But I'm in a hurry, so I'm going to do the other end of it. I'm going to force them to grow as quick as they can. And, if you want some context for it, when you look at Alaska, Alaska gets very long days in the summer. So they have a very short gardening season, but plants up there grow extremely fast because they have way more sunlight than most of us in the rest of the US, during the summertime. Going to our next variety here, we're going to plant one here called Bush Steak Hybrid. So it's kind of a beefsteak hybrid. They crossed with, a bush type tomato. So it's, you're going to hear for the first time here in this video, a determinate. And most of the tomatoes we grow are determinates. The cherry, of course, the first one, it's not a determinate. That thing will be a weed and take over the garden. And we never prune. We think about it. We might do a little here and there, but, we just enjoy ourselves. If we prune, we prune. If we don't, we don't. And the nice thing is, if something doesn't take, to the store we go. And we'll just, buy plants. Try to get away from that. Sometimes you get too lazy and you end up having to buy plants. Now, our tomato timing will be interesting. In the summertime, we can get up to 110 plus. We normally will float around 85 to 105 if we hit a heat wave. But our microclimate is very interesting. We can drop down 50 degrees from our high. So it can be 100 during the day and it can drop down to 50 degrees at night. And this presents some very interesting growing conditions because of it. So like what will happen is if our tomato seed flowers, our tomatoes open their flowers in the morning, they stand a good chance of pollinating and giving us tomatoes, even if it's going to be 100 degrees out. Because above about 80, 85, tomatoes don't pollinate very easily. And the pollen actually gets sticky. And it doesn't fall and pollinate the flower. So usually what happens like in climates like that I'm in is you'll get tomatoes and that will get fertilized right now and they'll start growing. And then what ends up happening is they produce and then you don't get anything past the first little flush of tomatoes. And then all of a sudden, as the heat lets off for the summer, you get a fall flush. So I could actually go along with these tomatoes, and since these are determinants, I can start these now, grow, and we'll get a flush tomatoes. I can take them out. And in the very beginning of July, like say July 1st or July 15th, somewhere about in there, I could start another round of determinate seeds. And I will get tomatoes, another round of them, before our next frost sets in for the year. We've actually harvested tomatoes all the way up through November. We have no worries that we're not going to, have issues getting tomatoes. Really, it comes down to what varieties do good and which ones don't. We're always experimenting. I mean, we've had very good luck with early girls, but we haven't grown early girls in quite a bit. Actually, I think we have a bush one here that we're going to get to that we enjoy. That produces very well in our climate. Beefsteaks for us are kind of mixed. These baby boomers, they're kind of a larger cherry. They did really, really well. We really enjoyed those. Yep, and here we go here. Our next one that we're going to do is actually a Bush Early Girl hybrid. That'll work out well. There's probably never a year that I've done the same thing twice on how I grow stuff. I mean, I enjoy the gardening because it's a relaxing thing. YouTube could turn it into a job on me, but watch the plants grow and we will go through and we'll take things like these tomatoes and we'll make up tomato sauce, we'll make chili, we'll make all sorts of different items and we'll freeze it. And it will get us through everything. Make sure those other holes were all closed up. Let's go ahead and get a few down each hole here. I expect with these seeds, since they're older, I don't have very many new packets this year. So I expect that many of these won't sprout. So I figure out of each variety, if I can get 2 or 3 out of each row here, I will get us our tomatoes for the year. Of course, I get accused of every year starting too many plants. So I'm an optimist. I'm optimistic that as soon as I don't plant enough seeds, They won't sprout. I should say I'm an optimistic contrarian. And we got the rest of the seeds in there. We don't have very many that are left, so we'll have to see what happens. If you've been following our saga, I'm hoping that we've got my camera overheating issue done. Number 5 on our tomatoes. And we're going to do ones here called San Marzanos. They're a type of Roma tomato. We really liked how well they did. So we've got the seeds. We're going to give them another run and see what type of pasta sauce they can make us again this year. And we'll go ahead and one of the things you'll notice too here is I fill my seed cells here like all the way to the. I recommend you leave yourself a little bit of space. I'll miss the top of these when I want to keep them moist here once they come up and take the dome off. And I like to do watering from below. So I'll lift the tray out a little bit. I'll fill the bottom with a real light nutrient solution and water. And I'll let the cells wick up their moisture. Oh, that's right. We didn't plant a lot of these this last year, and I have a lot of seeds here. This was the first year for the San Marzanos. And like I said, we really enjoyed them. Produce well for our environment. But we don't get a lot of the heavy moisture like what back east gets. So we don't see some of the diseases that you get on your tomato plants. What we see is sun scald, and if you're not religious on the watering, you'll get blossom end rot. I'm real guilty of that one. You can get a lot of sun scald and fruit split on the tomatoes from the heat. That's what we work with. And that's all our tomatoes. Our next one, we can do a rinse and repeat. We decided to grow some small eggplant this year. I have one here called Snout. That'll be a first time for us. The standard Black Beauty eggplant, we've grown that before. And our last one here that we're looking at is called, they're just a long, I believe, Japanese type eggplant. They're real thin, skinny. And you can see our eggplant set here that we're going to plant. We end up having the issue that we just get burnt out of eggplant. So we'll grow all this eggplant this year, and guess what's going to happen? We probably won't grow it for the next 3 years because we're just sick of it. It's kind of one of those hit and miss items on it. I decided to skip through and do the eggplant off camera. We're down to now just being left with our basil. Now this year I plan on, with the basil, to plant it in containers along with my tomatoes. Our tomatoes are going to be grown in half whiskey barrels this year. We're going to plant basil in with them to grow around the outside of each plant. That'll be something new for us. After gardening for 20 plus years, you'd think I'd mix plants, but no, I never got around to it. Just plant one crop, don't plant any other ones in with them. But we're going to try it this year. Worst case, we have to start more basil seeds, but I'm going to start so many anyways here. And I've re-angled the camera a little bit so that we can see the basil planting. I've already created my holes for the basil here. They're already pre-done. The thing about basil is it's got very, very fine seed, relatively compared to the tomatoes and the eggplant. So what we're going to do is I'm just kind of going to do a little pinch, a little sprinkling in each hole that I created. We'll get a whole bunch of plants in each one. We're growing Genovese basil, and depending on how you grow it, you can get some extremely large leaves. Some years I'll grow it hydroponically, and I can get leaves double or triple the size of the leaves that you would get by growing it in soil. I'm starting enough plants here this year that I believe I can do some hydroponic basil. We'll see if we get time. Hydroponic basil grows at double the speed. I'll get them all covered over here. I have a whole bunch more seeds to get started. We'll see if I can find a different way to film these. I don't quite like the way that this one's turning out. You'll have to let me know in the comments. This takes care of our one tray here. So starting at this end, we have our tomatoes. Starting at the white one, we have 3 varieties of eggplant. And the last 2 rows here, we've got Genovese basil. I always have good luck growing basil. Sometimes we really don't grow that much in the summer. Other times we grow a lot. We end up drying it, and then that will get us a couple years of dried basil to use when we need it for sauces and stuff. This is just tray number 1 of, I'm not sure how many trays of seeds we're going to be doing here. I believe at least 3. And to cap things off, no pun intended, we have our dome here. I just don't want to have to mist it multiple times a day. As soon as the plants start coming up, I'll get the dome off this. Keep your eyes out. We got more seed videos coming. Talk to you next time. Great for you to join us.